students, I welcome you all to this session. We are today going to discuss yet another topic of flowering plants, that is annuals, biennials and perennials. The flowering plants, also known as angiosperms, are the most diverse group of land plants. They comprise about 90% of the plant kingdom. Our planet Earth is supporting a huge diversity of plants. These plants are classified differently on various characters such as their habit, habitat, reproductive patterns, and a host of other characters. Based on the time taken by different plant species to complete their life cycles, the plants are classified into annuals, biennials, and perennials. First of all, we will discuss the annuals. Plants that complete their life cycle in a single growing season are called as annuals. These plants usually germinate, flower, seed and die in a single year. The gap between the two generations is bridged by a seed only. Depending upon the species, a seed usually sprouts early in the spring, grows and flowers well through the summer. The flowers are pollinated by various pollinating agencies depending upon the species. Towards the end of the growing season, the flowers form seeds and begin to wilt. As the seeds are dispersed, all the roots, stems, leaves and other parts of the plants die annually, with all the genetic material stored in the seeds. The seeds may germinate immediately or usually overwinter and sprout in the following spring if conditions are favorable. Although most of the annual plants are genetically made so, but there are many plants which, although are perennials, but behave as annuals depending upon the climate and the geographical conditions. Based on the season of their growth, the annual plants in angiosperms are of two types. One, the summer annuals, and second, the winter annuals. Summer annuals are plants which can grow and complete their life cycle in any warm period of summer. The seeds of this group germinate in spring, forming seedlings which then grow and bloom in summer and ultimately set seeds by autumn. The seed maturation marks the end of the life of the plant. Their growing season is from spring to autumn through summer only, thus named as summer annuals or warm season annuals. The familiar examples of summer annuals include crabgrass, marigold and dragon begonia. The winter annuals. The annuals which grow in winter season are called as winter annuals. These annuals start their life cycle in autumn, that is, they germinate from seeds in autumn, grow in winter and then bloom and ultimately set seeds in the following spring. With the completion of seed formation, the plants die and thus complete the life cycle. Their growing season is from autumn to summer through winter only, thus named as winter annuals or cold season annuals. The seeds of winter annuals germinate in soils when the soil temperatures are very low, as encountered in autumn or winter. The winter annuals grow close to the ground under snow cover and then utilize the warm periods of winter after snow melt to grow and complete their life cycle. The common examples of winter annuals are wintercress, chickweed and dead nettle. Now we come to another type of plants, that is the biennials. Plants that complete their life cycle within 2 growing seasons are called as biennials. The plant grows vegetatively and produces leaves but no flowers in its first growing season. In the fall, the leaves either die back or in some cases persist throughout the winter, forming a rosette. The plant's energy is stored in the overwintering storage root or bulb until spring, when leaves begin to grow again. In next spring or summer, the plant produces flowers and then develops seeds. Once the seeds are ripe, the whole plant dies, leaving the seeds to carry on the next generation. The common biennials are carrot, onion, beet, hollyhock, etc. The third type of flowering plants are the perennials. The plants which live for more than 2 years are called as perennials. They can either be short-lived, that is, living for a few years only, or they can be long-lived, that is, living for many years. The perennial plants are generally classified into two groups. First, the herbaceous perennials and second, the woody perennials. Herbaceous perennials are the plants which have annual tops but perennial underground structures. In these plants, the shoot dies off at the end of the growing season and the plant is survived by underground structures. The next season foliage or shoots sprout from the underground living structures with the onset of the favorable conditions. Based on the nature of underground perennating structures, the herbaceous perennials are of many types like Rhizomatous Perennials, Bulbous Perennials, Tuberous Perennials, Corm Perennials and Stoloniferous Perennials. First, the Rhizomatous Perennials. Rhizomatous perennials are those herbaceous perennial plants in which the underground perennating structure is a rhizome. The rhizome is a modified stem. In some perennial plants, the rhizome grows above the ground or on the soil surface, as we can see in iris. In such perennials, the above ground stem dies at the end of the growing season and the plant overwinters in the form of rhizome which sprouts in the next season to give rise to new shoots. The examples of rhizomatous perennials are ginger, irises, lily of the valley, etc. Another type of herbaceous perennials are the bulbous perennials. The plants having an underground modified shoot or bulb as a perennating structure are called as bulbous plants or bulbous perennials. The bulb consists of a modified stem base and modified leaves which act as food storage organs. The roots arise from the lower side of the stem base or disc and the stem and leaves from the upper side. The common bulbous perennials are allium, tulipa, muscari, lilium and narcissus. The third type of herbaceous perennials are the corm perennials. In this group of herbaceous perennial plants, the modified underground stem which helps the plant to overwinter is known as corm. The shoot in these plants dies at the end of the growing season and the underground corm which remains living gives off new shoots in the next season. Examples are crocosmia, crocus, etc. The fourth type of the herbaceous perennials are the tuberous perennials. The plants where the stem is modified into an underground tuber are called as tuberous plants. The tuberous plants are herbaceous perennials as the underground tuber helps them in the overwintering process. With the advent of the harsh conditions, the above ground shoot dies and the below ground part remains alive. This below ground tuber then sprouts in the next season and gives out the shoot once again. The examples of tuberous perennials include Solanum tuberosum, begonia, etc. The last category of the herbaceous perennials are the stoloniferous plants. In this group of plants, the stem runs horizontally either on top of the soil or below the soil, with its ability to form new individuals from its nodes or apical buds. This modified form of stem is known as stolon, and the plants possessing them as the Stoloniferous. They are often called as runners and include plants like Cynodon, Fragaria, Ajuga, Mentha, Convallaria, Solanum, etc. The second type of perennial plants after the herbaceous perennial plants are the woody perennial plants. This group of perennial plants consists of woody stem and roots, both surviving for several to 100 years. The woody perennials may be deciduous, evergreen or semi-evergreen. In deciduous woody perennials, the leaves are completely shed from the stem and branches, especially in winter or autumn as in temperate regions, or summer as in drought deciduous plants of deserts. In evergreen woody perennials, the plants remain green with leaves attached for the whole year. And in semi-evergreen woody perennials, the plants may retain their leaves depending upon the winter temperature and moisture. Based on their leaf morphology, the woody perennials are also classified into two groups: broad-leaved plants and narrow-leaved plants. Broad-leaved woody perennials bear leaves which have a broad blade or lamina, as we can see in Magnolia and Platanus. While as the narrow-leaved woody perennial plants bear leaves which have a narrow blade or lamina, as we can see in Santolina. Based on their habit, the woody perennials are generally categorized into three main groups. These are the shrubs, lianas and trees. Let's first talk about the shrubs. The shrubs are medium-sized woody perennial plants with a height of less than 12 meters. These plants have a woody stem below and herbaceous stem above. Shrubs are typically known to have multiple more or less equal-sized branches arising from the base of the plant, which gives it a bushy appearance. The common examples of shrubs are Rosa, Indigofera, Berberis, Caria, etc. Second group of these woody perennial plants are lianas. The lianas are woody plants which have a climbing, clasping or self-clinging habit characterized by long stems. They display a tremendous diversity of size and form and climb a host to reach the top canopy. The lianas are classified on the basis of their method or technique employed for climbing a host. The broad categories include: number 1, twiners. They twine around the support using stems, branches and petioles which coil themselves around the support. The best examples are presented by Wisteria and Lonicera. The second type of lianas are the tendril climbers. They usually spread by means of modified stems, leaves or leaflets called as tendrils, which form spring-like coils around the support. Examples are Virginia creeper and passion flower. The third type of the lianas are the scramblers. These plants usually bear hooks and prickles which curve downwards, thus helping them to attach to the support. The best examples are Bougainvillea and Rosa. And the type are the root climbers. The long stems of these plants form adventitious roots which help them to climb another plant or object. Examples are English ivy and climbing hydrangea. Sometimes the lianas do not interact with host plants and thus do not have a climbing habit. These plants then trail or creep on the ground. We now come to the last category or type of the woody perennial plants, that is the trees. Trees are large woody perennial plants which live from many to thousands of years. They are characterized by having a tall single main stem or trunk which bears many secondary branches at the apex. The tree habit is the most adapted one and characterized by a large-sized plant body. The tree seedlings after germination start photosynthesis and incorporate the photosynthate in the structure of their plant body. The consistent utilization of resources for structure development results in the huge size of the plant. Once the tree attains a typical size or age, it enters into the reproductive phase and starts flowering, forming fruits and seeds. There are two main patterns of flowering or seed production in perennial plants, that is the monocarpy or simulpary and second the polycarpy or heteropary. So far as the monocarpic perennials are concerned, they are also known as the Simulparous perennials. These are those perennial plants which remain vegetative for many to hundreds of years and then flower only once in their lifetime. They thus bloom only once in their life, set seeds and die. The examples of monocarpic plants are agave, which is the century plant, and some species of bambusa or the bamboo. On the other hand, the polycarpic or heteroparous perennials remain vegetative for initial years of life and once mature, they bloom every year and thus set fruits and seeds every year. The common examples of heterocarpic plants are apple, almond, pear, walnut, etc. We will talk a little bit about the form or shape of trees. Trees show a wide diversity in their size and form, with some trees as small as few meters tall to the ones as tall as 125 meters. They also display a variety of shapes determined by their genetic makeup and their environment. The most commonly encountered shapes of trees are spreading, conical, vase-shaped, upright, rounded, pyramidal, ovoid, weeping, irregular, spherical, etc. In addition to the naturally occurring tree shapes, many trees can be trained to acquire certain desired shapes. This is usually done through bonsai. Bonsai is the Japanese art of dwarfing trees or plants and developing them into appealing shapes by growing, pruning and training them in trays, pots or containers, usually for the aesthetic purposes. Common examples of bonsai plants are acer, punica, camellia, fagus, etc. An important characteristic of the trees is that they are considered to be the largest living organisms on the earth. Since trees are believed to be the case strategists, that is, the organisms which prefer large body size, long life expectancy and the production of fewer offsprings. They predominantly occupy the predictable environments. They have the ability to compete strongly and successfully, and therefore they occupy the climax environment. The trees show a delayed sexual reproduction and thus initially invest all the resources in the development of vegetative structures. They accumulate a lot of biomass in their body structure, which accounts for their huge size. Also, the apical and lateral meristems in them are continuously adding cells to the plant body, which results in increased tallness and girth of these plants. The predictable environment offers these trees a wide favorable growing season and a reason to delay their reproduction. This lends longevity to the trees, which use it to accumulate more biomass and thus huge body size. A long life in the productive environment gives this category of plants every reason to achieve a gigantic size and a dominant role in the vegetation. After achieving a typical size or age, trees then invest some resources in reproductive function. They flower and set seeds with seed size and seed number as a function of their natural selection. Sequoia sempervirens, the coast redwood, Eucalyptus regnans, the Australian mountain ash, Taxodium mucronatum, Montezuma cypress and Pseudotsuga manzisi, the coast Douglas fir, are amongst the tallest trees of the world. And Pinus longeva, the great basin bristlecone pine, and the Sequoia dendron giganteum, giant sequoia, are amongst the largest trees of the world. Dear students, with this we come to the end of today's lecture. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.